Hello and welcome to this video series that's all about running .NET workloads on Google Cloud Platform. My name is Chris Plowman. I'm a Client Solution Manager for Magenic. Magenic is a consulting firm and we specialize in really the end-to-end of your digital projects. So everything from inception and ideation of what it is you need to build or are focused on building to improve your business, all the way through that delivery and QA aspect. So we've got teams that work in the web space, mobile, traditional desktop applications. We have a great QA department, data and analytics, pretty much end-to-end on that software delivery and, like I said, the ideation piece. So helping build out the backlog, defining your minimum viable product, and getting that developed is all in the realm of Magenic. So feel free to take a look if you want to know more about Magenic at magenic.com. You can follow me on LinkedIn. It's Crispy Today on LinkedIn. It's also Crispy Today on GitHub, and I have a blog that is currently a little bit under construction, but should be up and running soon at crispycode.ninja. The agenda for this video series. In this video, we're going to introduce Google Cloud Platform, show a little bit of the console so you know your way around, and then we'll get into deploying a .NET application onto Google Compute Engine. That's an infrastructure as a service offering that allows you to deploy applications to virtual machines managed in the cloud. Next, we'll look at trying to take more advantage of all the scalability and power that the cloud platforms bring by switching over to some platform as a service, some managed offerings. So we'll switch our application, re-architect it a little bit to use cloud storage. We'll be updating from using SQL Server to using Cloud SQL, so a managed MySQL instance. And finally, we'll be deploying the web application itself up to the App Engine flexible environment. And that allows us to be kind of hands-free and allow the entire application end-to-end to sort of automatically scale and handle sort of whatever loads you throw at it. So it gives us kind of that end-to-end from first getting up into the cloud with infrastructure as a service to really leveraging the full power and having that great managed service offering. So we'll be looking at all those pieces. So I wanted to take a moment to talk about why we would even look at Google Cloud Platform for a Microsoft.NET application. In the early days of GCP, they didn't have a great Microsoft support offering. So if you were a .NET developer, it wasn't a very natural place. So when I speak with .NET developers, a lot of times they're even surprised to learn that today GCP does have a good and rich .NET support. And the way that came about was 2 or 3 years ago, Google started to shift their focus and concentrate more on the enterprise and understand why large-scale enterprises were not using GCP and trying to address some of those concerns. And certainly the lack of .NET support was a big gap for them. So they've come a huge way in filling that gap. And I think you'll see through this video series that today it's a fairly seamless experience and there's great support for .NET, particularly .NET Core with some of the managed service offerings. So it's really become a good platform for a .NET developer. So the platform has definitely come a long way and is well supported by Google today. So as a .NET developer, you can feel very, very comfortable and safe working in this environment and that you will have the support that you need going forward. Give Google a try. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by what they have to offer. So now let's take a quick tour of GCP. So I've gone to cloud.google.com. This is the landing page for GCP. So here you can find a lot of information, do your research to understand what the product offerings are. They have some information on why you would want to consider Google, what their sort of competitive advantages are, and a lot of research, documentation, learn about their pricing, their products, and what they have to offer. You can get started with your sign up process here, and once you've signed up, you can click into this console button to be taken to console.cloud.google.com, which is usually where I start to get into my instance. And you'll start off with this dashboard that gives you an overview of what you have running in your account. This drop down here will let you choose your project, which is kind of the high level grouping for anything that you want. The projects are all associated to your separate billing profiles. So if you have different projects that you want to be billed separately, that's how you can manage that. The main area of navigation is this hamburger menu. So if you click this, you get this left-hand navigation that's split up in fairly logical areas. At the top, you have general area of Cloud Launcher, allows you to find some pre-configured virtual machine images so you can get up and running quickly. You have your billing information, some of the security support, and getting started, other type of tutorial information. As you scroll down, you get into the compute services. So you can see we have App Engine, which we'll be looking at the App Engine flexible environment a little bit later. Compute Engine, which we'll be looking at also a little bit later, which is the infrastructure as a service. So that's your virtual machines. Kubernetes, so if you're running containers that you want to orchestrate using Kubernetes, that's where you go for that. Cloud Functions is the serverless offering. Then you see they have their selection of storage information. So this is both your relational as well as NoSQL and sort of blob storage information. It all goes in this section. There you have your networking area, so you can set up all of your network connections and manage that. Stackdriver is how you do your monitoring and telemetry. So all that tracing, error reporting goes in here. And then you have some tools. So they have their own container registry where you can set up your different container images. You can have a source repository, so if you want to have your Git sources uploaded into your cloud for ease of deployment, that can be there. You have a deployment manager, so you can watch what's going on with existing deployments and your endpoint configuration. The final section here is the big data section, where you can get into, of course, all the big data stuff, as well as machine learning and some of the IoT offerings. So that gives you an overview of what's here, fairly logically laid out, easy to see the different sections with the headings. So I find it very easy to navigate, and hopefully you will too. Other things along this top bar, you of course have a search. This little icon here is to activate Google Cloud Shell. So let me click that just to show you what that looks like. This will provision a Google Cloud Shell machine. So rather than you have to set everything up locally, or if you're out someplace where you need to use a shared environment, this is a great way to launch and be able to run all the gcloud commands just directly through your browser. So without having to set anything up on a local machine. So it just launches into a shell where you can start entering the gcloud commands or any of your normal kind of Linux terminal type commands. We'll close that for now. Then you have some notification areas and of course your account to be able to sign out. So this is kind of the main structure of using the console. Like I said, easy to navigate through and I think fairly intuitive. The things you'll need to do to set up your development environment to start taking advantage of Google Cloud Platform is first, of course, signing up for a free account at cloud.google.com. You'll also want to download and install the Cloud SDK tool. That'll set up all the gcloud information that you need to be able to manage your environment through PowerShell or command prompts. And then the next thing you want to do is install the Google Cloud Tools extension into Visual Studio. That's really handy for .NET developers to be in your familiar Visual Studio environment and be able to access your GCP resources. And that is available through Visual Studio, the Tools, Extensions, and Updates offering. So the typical place where you'd expect to find things. The first thing I'll be showing you as we go through this video series is how to move an existing application. So you can do this with any application, but of course this makes a lot of sense for your full .NET Framework applications, where you might be a little bit more limited on what you could use as far as the managed services that tend to be more robust using something like .NET Core. So for this, we'll be using Google Compute Engine, so infrastructure as a service. So you're managing VMs, and that's going to be appropriate for anything, right? You have VMs, so you can set up what you need. The caveat there is, of course, you need to make sure that your application runs on sort of modern operating systems with proper security. If there's things that you're running that are using a very old operating system or require a machine to not be patched, obviously you're going to have issues getting that particular version of the OS on any cloud provider. The nice thing here is it mirrors all your existing on-premise knowledge. So you're doing similar types of things. Your virtual machines are communicating in a similar pattern that they'd be doing in your own data center. and it gets you out of that business of having to manage the actual hardware in your data center. And also, you're leveraging Google's extremely powerful network. Google has spent a huge amount of time and huge amount of money perfecting a global network at scale. So they really have a tremendous network. And that is a giant advantage for Google Cloud Platform. Is just, you think about all the services that Google runs, things like Gmail and Maps, just their massive amount of services, the ad technology that they have, all that has to be underpinned by a great and powerful network. So Google definitely has that in spades. For some of the GCP stats and reliability service level agreements, you can see the listing of some of the different services here. All of them obviously very, very high uptime SLAs. The one that I'll call out, because it's I think fairly unique for any service across any cloud provider, is the DNS has an SLA of 100%. And that's pretty amazing. So you can think about the time when AWS had that outage and a huge amount of the internet traffic was down because of that outage. GCP customers were fine, and part of that DNS being up and running makes sure it can locate your machines and people can find you. So that's really great. In terms of scale, this was an example that Google shared at the Google Next conference. And this is for Pokemon Go. And what you're seeing here is the bottom line, the orange line that's going straight across. That was the original launch target. The estimated worst case was 5 times that. That's that straight across red line that you see. And the green line that's kind of going up and to the right, that spike, that was the actual traffic. And you can imagine, in one sense, that's a great problem to have. And because they were on GCP, they were able to scale and meet the demands. But at the same time, you can think about if this was an app that you were running in your own data center, you would be in a lot of trouble. There's no way that you'd be able to keep up and procure hardware fast enough to keep up with this spike of demand. So it really illustrates some of the advantages that you get from cloud providers. Google did a great job of scaling and maintaining the speed and throughput that Pokemon Go needed with this giant phenomenon of an app that I'm sure we all wish to see in our own applications. As far as pricing goes, GCP is exceptionally competitive. They really blow away the other major providers in terms of cost. So you'll see this is all things from their pricing section on their website, but overall they're reporting that customers are seeing about a 60% decrease compared to other cloud providers. And the reasons that they're able to achieve this is just some really nice policies. One thing that they have is a per second billing, as opposed to a lot of other providers that might be billing you hourly. So you can think if you have a workload that ran for 65 minutes, right? You'd be paying for 2 hours, where if it's per second billing, wow, you've really saved a lot of money just right there. There's also the sustained use discounts, where you have not only a particular machine, but a type of machine running that gets these discounts applied to it. Preemptible virtual machine instances. So if you've designed your application so that it can be interrupted and not cause problems, you can get a massive savings there, up to 80% cost reduction. And then the final thing that I wanted to point out was custom machine types, which is also something fairly unique to GCP. So custom machine types allow you to customize your processors and memory to achieve exactly the configuration that you need. So if you think about some other cloud providers where you may be in an 8-core standard machine image and you're starting to run up against some, say processor limits where you're steadily at 80-90% and you need to bump that up. Well, the next standard configuration might be 16 cores, and that's going to be quite expensive. But you might think, well, we can get by with 10. And so on GCP, it would allow you that flexibility to not be stuck into what they pre-configured the images to be. They certainly do have some standard ones that you can choose, but then you can go in and customize and say, well, maybe we need 10 CPUs. and maybe that standard 16 CPU has much more RAM than you need, so you can decrease that. So it allows you to kind of right size your environment and really only pay for what you need. So with that, let's get into the demo. So thank you for watching this video. In the next videos, we'll start working on the platform.